The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View, sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee. And if you want, we meet at the Crown Plaza the second Thursday of every month. And if you want to find out more information, you can go to our website at nashuagop.org.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello, and help me welcome Senator Kelly Ayotte to our People's View.
Thanks, Carl. Great to be with you.
Well, thank you very much to fit me in your busy schedule.
Well, always good to be here in Nashua, my hometown.
Yes,
so it's great.
Well, let's get down to facts here. What do you think your key issues are to get elected again?
So the key issues is that I've been able to work to get things done, work across the aisle. I helped pass the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act. That is national legislation that's going to help the work that you've done at the state level, state and local efforts in prevention, treatment, and recovery to help us turn around this heroin epidemic. I was really proud yesterday, Carl, to get the endorsement of the New Hampshire Troopers Association.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, it's great. And the New England Narcotics Officers Association and the Manchester Patrolmen, because I've really worked on focusing on getting the law enforcement the support they need for interdiction as well. And other issues that are so critical. My husband has a small business, healthcare costs.
Oh, yeah,
so
it's terrible.
we're, so many folks in Nashua throughout the state struggling with higher deductibles, higher copays, higher premiums. So I've been focusing on legislation, not one size fits all from Washington. How do we have more competition, choice, drive down healthcare costs for our families? And then national security, Carl. So important and a big difference in this race. I serve on the Armed Services Committee. I chair the Readiness Subcommittee. My husband's a combat veteran. And, issues like the Iran agreement, I've been a big critic of it, and Governor Hassan supports it fully. But we have seen Iran test post-agreement ballistic missiles that are dangerous, support more terrorism. That ransom payment that went to Iran, and then they took 3 more Americans, 2 sentenced yesterday to prison. So we need to keep our country safe against countries like Iran, ISIS, and I have the experience and really focused to do that in this race. So many important issues, and I'm going to focus on them in these coming days.
That's right, and you've done a great job so far that you've been there as a freshman.
Yes, thank you.
You're an experienced person that's doing a lot more than some of the senators that have been there longer than you.
Yeah, I've tried to work my hardest, and obviously work on ways to get things done, deliver results, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Well, I hope everything works out well, and we'll try to work in the state legislature.
Yes, I know you work hard at that too, and we appreciate it.
Well, I'm a little bit worried. You're working on this heroin and getting support for that. We can't pass that money on fast enough here.
Well, what's hard to believe is that I know you've been working hard to get the resources out. I've been fighting hard to get more federal resources to the state. Yet 2/3 of the money that you allocated in the budget, the governor and the governor's commission have not gotten out to the communities, and that's really important that we do that.
Even in the extra $3 million that they wanted to help the local police force, they've only distributed $1 million of the 3.
Yeah, that's again 2/3 of the money. And we know. Trust me, I know Chief Lavoie, I know the Nashua Police, they're ready to go use those resources on interdiction. Same thing with Manchester, our other law enforcement agencies in our state. They know what to do with it, they're ready to go, and you've made the decision to get it to them. I'm going to support them at the federal level, but I don't understand what the bureaucracy is holding it up, and that's about leadership there.
Well, that's true, and I can't understand how your opponent is claiming all this stuff as her own in the budget and everything. She vetoed the budget and took 3 months before we could override it.
Yeah, I know that you know that issue well because the House and the Senate came together with a responsible budget that actually lowered taxes on our small businesses.
Right.
And then Governor Hassan vetoed that because she did not agree with the business tax cuts. And now you see that she's taking credit for that. But that's not the kind of
Well, the
We've
nerve.
got too much of that in the nation's capital. I mean, I really want to focus on, a better tax and regulatory environment for our small businesses, and that's what I fight for every day.
Well, we're going to, if she gets to stay out her term here, we're going to have trouble too, because she's already drafted the budget for this coming year. And it's the same thing. We're going to have to throw that out again and start over again and give a
Yeah,
good
more
budget.
spending in taxes, right? As
Right,
opposed
another
to,
$1 billion.
right. And that, that's where I think there's a big difference in this race. Really focusing, she, has a history of not only proposing these unbalanced, higher spending budgets that you all in the legislature have to fix, but tax proposals. So going back to her time in the state senate, remember that LLC income tax on our small businesses? She was a big part of that. And, that was tough for our small businesses. And we see the same thing in vetoing the budget. So they're big issues. If you want to keep more money in your pocket, that's what I'm focusing on, and not someone who's focused on more tax increases.
We want a little bit more transparency too, because
Yes.
we're not seeing that in our biggest administration is the HHS.
Yes.
And they haven't even told us how much they spent this last fiscal year.
Right. I know that the legislature has wanted the fiscal reports so
Well,
that
it's
you
supposed
could.
to be in September.
Right, and none of those have been produced by the governor's office. It's unfortunate, because that's how you keep track of the money,
That's
right?
right,
Make
that's
sure
right.
that the taxpayer dollars are being spent wisely.
We know it's over the budget, but we don't know how much it's over. Isn't that a shame?
Right. I think there's a reason maybe before this election they
I
may
think
not be
that's
wanting
right.
to tell you that. So I don't know what it is, but
Well, I know you have something to do with the immigration that I think we have to watch out for that too.
well,
You
we
talked
do. I
about
mean,
the
I've
terror.
been supporting how do we fix our illegal immigration system, and also reform our legal system to make sure it's fair and make sure that we're giving people who want to be part of our country and make us stronger here opportunities to be here and help us grow our economy. But on the illegal immigration front, there are some big differences in this race. I mean, as a former attorney general, I believe in enforcing the law, and I've supported ending sanctuary cities, and Governor Hassan has supported sanctuary cities, and that's actually what that means. Just so people understand, is that sanctuary cities are cities that basically say we're telling our local law enforcement that they shouldn't cooperate with federal officials. And you may have remembered that woman who was beautiful young woman killed in California because in a sanctuary city, the man who killed her, they weren't cooperating with the federal authorities. So we need to enforce our laws for sure. And then let's make sure we make the changes to our legal immigration system for the people who I know who are diligently waiting in line, who want to be here, want to be part of this great country and help us grow and be stronger.
Sure, if we had a system that worked well and these people became illegal and citizens faster, why do you wait 5 to 10 years?
I know and I deal with so many folks that have problems in Nashua and throughout the state who are working. They have a great job. They want to be part of this, and they're dealing with a lot of red tape. So I think we can improve that system too.
Well, I hope so, because I have a daughter-in-law who's trying to become a citizen.
See, there you go, Carl.
And,
so wants to be part of this country and works hard, well-educated, and wants to make us better.
That's right. I mean, she came here and she got an advanced degree.
Yes.
And now she wants to become a legal citizen, and
Well,
it
good
just
for
takes
her.
time.
Yeah, so I think we can make it easier for people who really want to be part of our country and make us better, but also deal with the illegal problem.
Well, we got to get out the vote. We got to get our people organized to make sure they all come out and vote, because I think that there's going to be a push of people who haven't voted before. I think
Very
maybe they
important that
recognize
people
that.
understand what's at stake
Yeah.
for our country and that they get out to vote. And we want everyone to get out to vote and make sure that they're really thinking about how are we going to make the country stronger. We're $19 trillion in debt, get our fiscal house in order. How do we make it easier for our small businesses to create good paying jobs and keep the country safe in a dangerous world? Those are critical issues that are at stake in this election. And so I hope your listeners do get out and vote. It's really important. And who's going to be their voice in the Senate? I'm going to wake up every day and fight for the people of Nashua and this state because, it's not about bringing Washington here. It's about bringing New Hampshire to Washington to fight for the people of New Hampshire.
That's another contrast with your opponent, because from what we see, she's not around enough to even talk to the legislature.
Right.
She just tries to have the people there just fight against some of the progressive things that we're trying to do.
I know, and I'm certainly someone who, my husband has a small business in Merrimack. We live in Nashua. We're raising our kids here, so I wake up with a sense of purpose to fight for people in New Hampshire, because often the decisions made in Washington make it harder.
That's right.
For folks in Nashua and throughout the state, and so that's where I want to make sure we bring some more common sense there.
Well, we're going to be doing things too to help our infrastructure, which again helps
Very
businesses.
important. Infrastructure is critical, and I helped work to pass the first long-term infrastructure bill at the federal level in 10 years, in a decade. And I also have another bill, Carl, which fraud in our tax code. This is a beauty. Additional child tax credit, that you receive a tax refund for a child if you meet a certain income level. And guess what? There have been investigations of it. Right now, the IRS doesn't require you to put a Social Security number with the child that you're claiming.
Really?
So investigations have showed people claiming children and getting money back that don't even exist or don't live in this country. So if you fix that, guess what you can save? You can save $20 billion over 10 years. I have a bill to take that $20 million and put it into roads and bridges, Carl.
Great.
Just by fixing fraud in our tax code. How's that?
It's great to hear that, but how did it happen in the first place? People
Well,
don't
this is
do
where,
this.
the disconnect, and, there's a lot to be desired in dealing with the IRS, but we can fix that fraud, that piece that's just crying out for fixing in the tax code, and lots of investigations that have shown we should do it.
Well, it sounds like it's one of those logical things.
Common sense,
A little bit.
Right.
But IRS, you wonder about the common sense that's available there.
Oh, I know. One of the things that I work really hard on is that I've had so many of my constituents struggling with the IRS. So, there's a woman I helped, for example, that was the victim of identity theft and couldn't get her tax refund back and was going to lose her home. So I had to intervene with the IRS and fight that. And I've been fighting for identity theft victims with the IRS. How do we secure our information? And it's a big bureaucracy, but we've got to fight it to really make sure that people don't get caught up in it.
Yeah, you think you're making any progress in getting them to approve some of those Republican PAC committees that?
Well, that was the target. We should never have an IRS that targets people based on its political views. That's no matter what your political view is, that's just wrong. That's very troubling for the nation.
Well, it's things that happened a year or so ago is still on hold.
Oh, I know.
I can't understand that.
I know.
And nobody takes responsibility. We need to do that, because we need to do that here in the state too.
Yes, that's true.
We have the same problem, only on a smaller scale.
Right, very true.
And we're looking too at the distribution of funds to different organizations, nonprofit organizations that can help us in our health care. And the money that we had put aside with that new budget that was approved has still not been distributed.
Yeah, I don't understand that, and I think that's an issue that needs to be asked of the governor. Why isn't the resources you allocated going out the door to? We know that there's some great work and community organizations that are working on prevention and treatment and recovery, and also our police. Like, why aren't those resources? They exist. They're working hard at that to get those resources to them.
Yeah, the waiting list for these disabled people. It's grown instead of.
Well, this is what's
more money.
Unbelievable. So the disability waiting list. This is a situation where I know the legislature actually designated money to end the waiting list, and HHS basically they didn't spend the money.
Right.
And they lost the federal match. We lost a $20 million federal match, could have helped end, and this was all found in a performance audit. And yet again, the governor's office, where have they been on this? See, the thing is that it's really important to do your current job.
Yeah.
And that's where I focus on before you look for the next job. So this is one where we want to make sure that the developmentally disabled, that they don't have to be on that list. And I know the legislature has been focusing on it, but why HHS has not gotten the money out the door to get folks off that list, and the list has grown. It's sad.
Yeah, and there are a lot of these nonprofit organizations that are really thinking about how to work better together.
They are together cooperatively, and we should make it easier for them. And I know you've been focused on that, and to me, that's really important.
Oh, well, here in Nashua, we have Harbor Homes. I don't know if you've been
Oh,
involved
Harbor
there.
Homes is really important work. Yes.
And how they're tied together here.
Yes.
And they're able to handle different aspects of
They
these-
do so much, you know, whether it's helping our homeless, those who are struggling
Right.
with mental illness, those who are struggling with substance use disorders from the heroin epidemic. And I know they do a lot in this community. And getting them, you know, help in other organizations that are focusing that way is important.
And now if we can do that, expand that a little bit more to the rest of the state would be in much better shape,
Yes.
treating these people that need it. What about on the federal level? Have you experienced some of that problem with distributing the federal funds?
Yes, in the sense that, you know, we've passed additional resources, and it does take time at the federal level for them to come down to the state level. And so I've called on, I've called on, you know, the federal Health and Human Services to get the money out the door as fast as possible to the state to make those decisions. So that is a matter of course, we need oversight. We need to make sure it goes to the right places. But you can't have the bureaucracy hold up what we are dealing with, which is such a crisis on this heroin issue. So that's what I'm always looking for, ways to do it better, cut through the red tape, get the help for New Hampshire. And frankly, the less red tape, the more that we can serve people and help people in the community.
Right. Well, we have to do that, and I see how difficult it is on a local level. It must be really almost impossible to move the bureaucracy.
It is, but you know, I wake up and I fight this bureaucracy all the time because I feel like, you know, it's the people in New Hampshire and it's like the folks that are out there working hard every day that the bureaucracy comes down on. Let me give you examples. Our veterans, you know, I mean, my husband's a combat veteran. I'm so passionate. My grandfather's a World War II veteran. You know, the care that they have earned defending this nation, and yet we're trying to get them that local care, fighting hard for it. And they deal with so much bureaucracy with that. So I'm trying to cut that bureaucracy out for our veterans. That's a great example. We talked about making sure that that's not there and addressing the heroin epidemic. The IRS, another example, you know, where people are victims of identity theft, they can't get their own returns back that they need, you know, for whether they're mortgage, important issues in their family. So each area, it's so important that we make it about serving people, not serving the bureaucracy.
That's right. Is there, you see any break in this resistance to operating more effectively?
I think that it's about having people that are willing to fight it and willing to say the status quo is not acceptable, we do things differently. And that's what I try to do on all these issues I just talked about, whether it's veterans, IRS, you know, issues, by the way, regulatory issues that come down on our small businesses that make it harder. I mean, there's so many alphabet soup agencies in Washington that are looking to perpetuate, that are throwing a lot on our small businesses and makes it harder for them to create good jobs here. We need to make it easier for them.
Right. And they isolate themselves and protect themselves.
Well, they're not, you know, elected, they're not accountable, and
Right.
that's where I'm sponsoring several pieces of legislation, including the REINS Act, Carl, that major regulations would have to come back before the Congress for a vote instead of the unelected folks making these decisions.
Good, good.
Yes.
Because that's what we're trying to do here, make our legislative committee that sort of looks at these regulations stronger in their review of them, not just passing them.
Right, and a cost-benefit analysis.
Right. That's
so another bill that I have, the Small Business Regulatory Flexibility Act, you know, a lot of these things come down and they're not looking, the agencies aren't considering what happens with a small business in the national community. How can they afford this? What do they have to do to meet it? And that analysis has to happen, and it, unfortunately, in many instances, it's not.
Well, I don't know what you're looking forward to doing first thing when you're reelected and the first time the session starts next year. Do you have any high priority things that you have to drive
Yes,
home?
I do have high priority. Number one, build on what we got passed for the Comprehensive Addiction Recovery Act to make sure that those resources in prevention, treatment, and recovery, we can't do it all from Washington, but helping that state and local effort, such a priority for me. The care for our veterans. The bureaucracy they're dealing with, I want to make sure that our veterans in our state, they can go locally and don't have to deal, like, let's cut out the middleman, give them a card, let them go, get the care that they've earned. And other issues, Carl, I want to deal with our tax code.
Oh.
We have a tax code that we have some of the highest business taxes in the world. And guess what? Jobs are staying overseas.
Yeah.
Let's get them here. Let's deal
Right.
with a tax code that helps our small businesses compete in a global economy, keeps the jobs here, and a regulatory environment that does that. One final issue, healthcare. If we don't address some of these changes that need to be made to the Affordable Care Act, we're going to continue to see higher premiums, higher deductible copays, and our families can't afford it.
Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous, some of those numbers that are coming out.
Oh, it's awful. And I hear it. I'm out meeting folks that
Sure.
are just like, I can't afford this.
Yeah. Well, again, I have family that is being affected by it, especially if you're working with your own small business.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how can you?
Well, I had a roundtable with small business owners, and they were talking to me about, 25, 30% increases.
That's right.
We want to provide for our employees, but
And
boy,
so-
it's gotten harder. It's, we don't have choice. We have very few
right.
choices in terms of insurers. It's just, yeah.
Well, I hope you. Well, you're going to have a lot of fights on your hands.
We got some fight, but it's.
But you're there.
And
you're
you know
always
what?
there
New
for
Hampshire
us.
and the country's worth it, right?
That's
so
right,
that's
definitely.
why I want to do this again,
Yeah.
Carl.
Okay. Well, maybe we can carry on together because.
I hope so. I know you've got that passion for it as well.
Well, it's just ridiculous that you have people who are supposedly be working for our voters, and they don't seem to care about really. They can say a lot, but they don't deliver.
Right.
And,
delivering results, fighting for common sense for the people of New Hampshire. That's really where our focus needs to be at the state and the federal level.
That's right.
Yeah, and working together on
that's,
that.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's just what I was going to say. Because we have a lot of people that want to do that. You've probably met people in the bureaucracy that are.
There are some really good people that want to do the right thing,
they
are working
can't.
their hardest,
Yeah.
and they actually have disincentives to the people who are really working hard, like even the VA. So I've met some wonderful people that
yeah.
work there. They love our veterans, and we should be rewarding those good employees, and the people who commit misconduct or aren't doing their work. Let's make sure we hold them accountable and let the good people be rewarded, and let's say thank you, and let's do better for our veterans.
Is there something that we have to do with the legislation to I hate to say it this way, to punish the bad guys, but at least
Yes,
get them
there is,
out of the way?
And I've really been working on this. So I had a bill to, what happened with the VA of, especially in Arizona, other places where people committed misconduct, they manipulated wait lists, and veterans died. So I had the bill to make sure that, and they got bonuses.
Yeah,
so
right.
to make sure that those bonuses would never happen again in those circumstances, that if you commit misconduct, you don't have a bonus. First of all, if you're not doing your job, no bonus. But also more accountability for the people who aren't doing their job, to hold them accountable and reward the good people. So I had a bill that passed out of the VA committee, passed out of the Homeland Security Committee to do just that, Carl. And you know what happened? It came to the Senate floor, and the people who want the status quo, federal employees unions who came in and asked the Democrats to block it, they blocked it. And so we need to change the status quo. And to me, that is legislation I'm going to continue to push. And let me just say one thing just about the Senate race. Those same, groups of unions have spent millions of dollars attacking me in this race on behalf of Governor Hassan, and you see it on your television. But understand that's because, we need to reward the good people, thank the good people. But if you're committing misconduct, you don't get a bonus, and you shouldn't be able to continue to work, and especially for our veterans who have done so much for this nation. So that's an example of, looking at what's happened, how we need to change what's happening.
Well, I don't know how it is in the federal government, but I assume it's the same as it is here in the state, where bonus is sort of just like an expected thing that everybody gets. You really have to, I guess, to miss your bonus, you have to
A bonus really should be focused
in jail or
on
something.
excellent work.
That's right.
And you should have the ability to reward excellent work. But what troubles me most in the veteran situation is that, the woman who was in charge of the Phoenix VA, where veterans literally died, manipulated wait lists, she got a bonus. And she got to keep it, Carl.
Yeah.
Veterans died. She, lost her position, kept the bonus. And by the way, you still have a federal bureaucracy that may allow this woman back.
That's right.
So how does that make your worker in the VA who's doing the right thing, who's working the hardest? That's demoralizing. And also, what about our veterans?
Yeah.
I mean, they've done so much for this nation. They deserve the best.
You think there's any chance of actually reorganizing some of these departments that the government has?
Well, I hope so. I hope there are ways we can make changes to...
Because it seems to be the only way you're going to do it is to do something that's really radically different, you know?
Well, I think we need to use some basic common sense on
Yeah.
accountable, reward good employees. If you commit misconduct, you have no business being involved with our veterans or serving. So I think that a lot of this is common sense, but it's giving the authority. The rules right now, and that's why I introduced the legislation to change them, they don't make sense in terms of what I just told you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I worked and retired from DuPont. It's a big organization.
Yes.
They had lots of bonuses, different ways of rewarding the people. And I'll tell you, you had to go through a lot of discussions, let's say, where you're evaluating the people that are below you and comparing them to people that are in different divisions around.
Right.
But they had a quantitative way of doing a measurement. I don't see that at all being applied in
One thing that I think
government.
is really important also in this system is the inspector generals that do the work.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very supportive of, they do work and investigations to see what's happening in these agencies, giving them more authority to conduct those investigations, and then as members of Congress taking their recommendations seriously.
That's right.
So that's an area where I think we actually could enhance more what we're doing and be able to use that information to make good decisions on these organizations and how we can serve the people better.
Right, and that's what's happening in the state too. We have an audit system, and it's not just looking at the money, it's looking at the process.
It's looking at the performance and
That's
how
right.
you're serving people and what are you getting done and are you doing the best thing for people in New Hampshire.
But you ought to see how long some of these recommendations last before they even try to apply them.
Right.
You know, there's no reason why we have some people who are doing a good job, are looking at the ways to help you do a better job, and they get ignored.
We should make it easier for them and listen to them.
Yeah.
And one other area, let me just say, so what's called the Government Accountability Office, they
Yeah.
audit. They audit each year, and they focus on, they do a report each year on duplication, waste, and fraud.
Right.
And those reports sit on the shelf too much. So I actually have a bipartisan bill, Carl, that's passed out of the Homeland Security Committee, working with Joe Manchin, who's a Democrat from West Virginia. We would require the president actually to take up those recommendations and submit them to the Congress, and we'd have to vote up or down on them within a very time certain. Because we don't need those sitting on the shelf. Let's take the work done.
That's right.
Make government better, deal with duplication, waste, and fraud to serve the people and obviously help us save money too.
And you're putting the light on everything, Kelly.
Yes, that's
Thank
important.
you very much.
Very important.
Senator, we're out of time already.
Well,
and
great to be with you.
It's nice to be with you, and it's nice to know that we have somebody down there in Washington that's doing something.
Well, thank you, Carl, and I appreciate your work at the state level. It's great to be
Okay.
with you today.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
again.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.